hey there! Welcome back to another Next Generation Sidequest. Today we're going to be checking out Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and we're just getting Laurel all warmed up and ready to go. So let's punch right in. So usually these videos, we feature the video of us playing in the corner, but in our first for us, after 35 episodes it seems, we've had a video mishap. So I had some issues with the recordings of us playing. I have the actual game footage, which is what we're playing for you right now, and we're just recording some voiceover to go along with our footage. So Laura, you played first. What were your thoughts about the game?
It was overall a pretty great game. It's pretty unique. I don't think I've seen another game like it, honestly. Like, obviously there's other fighting, boxing games out there, but the over-the-shoulder part was pretty, like, I don't feel like I've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm trying to even think of another fighting game that's that way. There are some games that do that for things. Contra has a mode. I don't remember if we got that far when we played Contra. But there's like a kind of behind your character view. But yeah, as far as a fighting game goes, it's fairly unique.
Yeah.
So the game actually started as an arcade game by Nintendo. They had an oversupply of monitors from when they made Donkey Kong. I guess they ordered too many. They expected more orders than they had gotten. So they decided they needed to make a game that would use 2 monitors per arcade machine. And so the arcade one actually has a top monitor that shows a picture of your guy and the opponent, and then like all the score information and everything up at the top. Kind of like what it is on the NES, but it's all put onto one screen. The other big difference in the arcade one was that your character was kind of like a wireframe see-through.
Oh, okay.
But that proved to be too difficult for the NES, so they kind of went with the character you play as, Little Mac, and so he's kind of small in the front, which gives you a good view of the opponent you're playing against.
Right.
So first you played against Glass Joe.
Right.
The first guy. Are there any specifics about him that you...
He was pretty repetitive, which makes sense because he's the first character that you fight against. So it makes sense because he's kind of like the tutorial, I guess. And it's funny because in his, in between rounds, the characters will say something. And he kept talking about how he was, too old to fight and stuff, and how this is his last match before he retires. But, he's only 38, and, the next guy you fight after that is, I think, 42 or something, which is kind of funny, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of a way to say that he's not that great and kind of at the end of his career.
Right.
So you're kind of starting off with a super easy opponent. So a big mechanic in the game is sort of the pattern recognition, like watching for certain tells or moves that they do that let you know that they're about to attack, knowing when to do your counterattacks.
Right, for example, Glass Joe has his, where he goes up with his right and he takes, a big scoop before he uppercuts, which you're not really supposed to do because it's an obvious tell.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really nice because it gives you, an obvious tell that he's about to uppercut so you can dodge out of the way. And then after that, he's kind of stunned, so you can... Yeah,
so there's the different kind of... And then they have different weaknesses. So Glass Joe, his whole thing is kind of that... There's a thing with boxers where they kind of refer to certain people as having a glass jaw, basically because you can get hit in the jaw and it affects the nerves in your neck or something, to where you can get knocked out super easy just from a hit to the chin. And so that's kind of a hint for that first guy that you should go for uppercuts. So yeah, the different enemies will have different weaknesses and things as you go along, and that's kind of a big thing, is finding the patterns and knowing how to beat each one. So another interesting thing is, so we're playing Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, but they only had a 3-year license for to use Mike Tyson's name. So later on it was changed to just Punch-Out, and in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, he's the final opponent that you face. Then when they changed it to just Punch-Out, they changed the final character to Mr. Dream. An interesting thing was that they actually contracted with Mike Tyson before he was like super famous world champion. So they got a pretty good deal. It looks like they only paid him $50,000 for a 3-year deal to use his name and likeness, which turned out to be a really good deal for Nintendo, because then by the time the game was out and everything, he was a super famous boxer and really worked out well for them. So you're fighting 11 different opponents.
Yeah.
We only saw
3 today.
Yeah.
I think that I saw 3 and then Dad saw 2.
Yep. Laurel beat me again.
I know. I'm just that good.
Yeah, so we saw Glass Joe, Kaiser, and
Piston
Honda. And you got pretty far even with him too.
Yeah.
But not quite enough to beat him. Another interesting thing was that Little Mac is in Super Smash Brothers.
Yeah, although he's not that great of a character.
Yeah, yeah. But I feel like at this point they're just throwing like everyone they can into that game. It's just full of like every character ever, almost, it feels like. So yeah, just kind of an interesting cameo to see him in that game.
Because I don't think that there's... Well, is there any sequels?
To Punch-Out?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a Super Punch-Out, so maybe at some point when we get to starting to look at Super Nintendo games, we can revisit that. And then there's the arcade games. There was a number of those where they had upgraded and added new enemies you could fight and things. Anything specific about the second guy that you remember? Kaiser.
He always would shake his head before he threw his like left jab.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that's kind of his tell.
That was like the main move that he threw.
Yeah, so they each kind of had their thing.
Oh, the second guy also was like very prancy, I guess. Like I don't know, he just kind of like would like skip out in front of you, and I just thought that was kind of funny.
And then so when you got to the third one, he had kind of a more like a lot more motion with his feet going back and forth.
Yeah, and like, he had this like he'd go back and forth, and then he'd give like a bunch of punches in a row, which is like hard to dodge. So
that's again kind of that pattern thing where you'd have to do left, right, or whatever the dodging pattern was to avoid his punches. Yeah, so then the Piston Honda guy is the youngest of the ones that we had seen. Yeah. And he's from Japan. The one thing that's odd is that, like, the weight class seems a lot, like, off by a lot, I guess. Yeah, there's definitely, it's thrown off a little more, or even more by just the size, the visual size. It makes it almost, like, comical. But it kind of gives it a interesting charm kind of thing, too. That, like it kind of makes... You're this little guy fighting these giants. Yeah, it kind of gives you, like, the classic protagonist is the underdog feel, I guess. Yeah. Another thing we didn't mention was that Mario is the referee. Oh, right. I forgot about that. So he comes out and gives you the counts and lets you know when to fight and when there's a knockout. So yeah, yet another game where they're bringing in Mario to kind of tie into the Nintendo brand. Yeah, so overall, I thought it was a fun game. Yeah. It was for yet another game that I didn't play a whole lot growing up, and I've never beaten it. I think I've gotten to like King Hippo playing in the past, and it's like he's the fifth boss, so I've never gotten that far into it. But I do feel like this is one where you would really have to sit down and repeatedly play through to learn those patterns good enough to make it through consistently. Thanks for joining us on this Next Generation Sidequest and a quick look at Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. I think we both enjoyed taking a look at this game, and we've got more sports games coming up in the future we're going to take a look at. And if there's any games in particular that you're looking forward to, let us know, and we can consider those for future videos. We've also got some cool accessory hardware videos coming up, and also more black box videos as well. So look forward to those coming up. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.